Hey there, everyone. This is Bill McDonald, the Reading and Writing Doctor. If I were to have a public debate on who the best superhero was, or is, or forever will be, I think we'd have 100 different responses because every superhero is unique and has his or her own unique strengths, abilities, weaknesses, disabilities. The one I want to talk about for today's video in CREST online training, part 1, lesson 14, is Spider-Man for usage. When we were younger, a lot of us who've been around for a while used to have to do what was called diagramming of sentences. And I remember still, I'm already almost 60 years old, and I remember how boring that was to name all the parts of speech. They were essential, but it was boring. So I had to come up with a new way to teach subject, verb agreement, usage myself, parts of speech. And so I'm going to use Spider-Man in this lesson, and perhaps the next one, if it goes long, to connect his subject, the person, place, thing, or idea singular, the people, places, things, ideas plural, simple or compound subject, to the predicate using a web. So if you can imagine a little W right here as a web that connects the subject, we'll call the subject the scarecrow because he was missing his subject, his brain. And we'll call the predicate the Tin Man because he was missing his predicate, his heart. The lion was just missing the courage to make it all happen. So they worked with Dorothy to get to the Wizard of Oz and learn how to follow the yellow brick road. Well, I'm going to teach you today how to think of a sentence like a street that you pave. A sentence is like a street that you pave. For each word on the street, the pavement would get longer and longer, but eventually all roads must come to an end. In the case of Wizard of Oz, they ended up in Oz by following their road. Even expressways and highways eventually end, and we have to stop. If your students are writing sentences, but you only see one period, that's called a sentence, and you would have a big run-on. So for example, all of those monkeys that you were sent as part of your hard copies, you have 6 different colors: yellow, blue, green, purple, orange, and red. Most of you got those 6 colors as long as I had them in stock because there's just so many people ordering. I haven't been able to keep up with all of you, but I made sure that all of you at least have the yellow to get the sentence started. We call that the slow. The green to make sure there's a subject and predicate go, and the whoa as in the stop sign. So the capitalization, slow down, start the sentence, usage, subject, verb agreement, go until you have the subject and the predicate, and then have a stop sign. That's called cup, singular. Hopefully they'll be halfway decent spelling so we could have cups and you could have good conventions on your sentence. People ask me, Bill, why do you teach usage after spelling, penmanship, keyboarding, capitalization, punctuation, and even run-ons and fragments. Well, comma, it is because in most usage questions in an editing passage and most usage in a paragraph that a student writes in the form of an essay or a short answer response has to have subject verb agreement in more than one sentence. So usage, subject verb agreement, is one of the 5 letters of cups if you use the 2 S's, 6 letters if you use the 3 S's of superheroes, penmanship with pens, pencils, and paper, or keyboarding with PC or uh, personal computer, or SC, school computer. So if you think of a sentence like a street, and the sentence is going to be connected using spider web to connect to his predicate, you can't have a subject without a predicate. And so this first part will just be teaching your students, how do you have a simple sentence that has a subject, or as close to the beginning as possible, has what might be called a simple subject, along with a simple predicate, and then ends with a stop sign. So what I've done for you is a drawing that will be a great anchor chart. And I think it would be best if all of your students were to draw one. But let me show you why I'm getting you there. The only editing we haven't talked about on this list here is usage. It says Spider-Man. Web the sentence for subject verb agreement, thinking about these concepts. Is it singular or plural? Is it past? I'm putting my hands behind me. Present, happening right now, or future? Are the subject and predicate simple, or are they compound? Is there a context error? Are we reading it inside the context of the content to make sure that, yes, even though it might be a correctly written word, it might not be used correctly in that scenario inside that paragraph. And that's why it's so important to teach kids. You must make sure you read at least 3 sentences when it comes to questions like number 1, what change, underlying change, should be made in sentence blank, sentence 22. So underline change and label cups. So usage is the one we're going to practice. So if you're going to draw along with me, you'll need the same colors that most of you have in the monkeys. You'll need yellow, orange, red, purple, blue, and green crayons, markers, or colored pencils. And I'm teaching you the simple version that your kids can draw first. I folded the paper in half. Right there where my finger is, you can see the perforation. So on the top half with yellow, because we're going to do a simple sentence, we're going to think of first slow, shift, size, shape. It's going to be taller. The first word of the sentence is going to be taller. And it's also going to be the subject. Okay. And we're putting a W, not for a collar, but a web to connect to what you're going to draw next is a little rectangular-ish shape on the lower half with the word pave. And all of those letters of pave stand for something. Then you'll have your E, your ending, which is your stop signs that has a ball called a period, a ball with a stick called an exclamation or exclamation, or a ball with an ear where somebody's asking you for something and waiting for a response. So orange, if that's your predicate, your action, your verb, sometimes you're going to add to the verb, the predicate or the action by telling the reader how, why, where, when, or some other or opposite. And so I'm noticing I have all of the adverbial type words on the street orange, like your orange monkeys. If I go up to the top, I have a yellow head to remind you that if it is the first word in the sentence, you must think in your mind slow, start with shift to change the size and the shape of the letter so it can start with a capital. He's got some hairs on his head because sometimes the subject, whether it's singular, you can see it right there, green on the left, person, place, thing, or idea, or plural, people, places, things, or ideas. If there's two, if it's just one simple subject, because we're going to have a simple sentence, it's just one person, one place, one thing or idea that's going to be doing the predicate, the action, and the verb. It's compound. That means there's two people, places, things, or ideas. So compound could be John likes pickles, period. Bill likes pickles, period. Well, Bill and John like pickles. That would be a compound subject. So why do I have the blue? Well, if you're going to add to the subject, in many cases, a noun or a pronoun, an adjective tells you often how many or what kind or what size. So there's several different ones you can use, but for each type of adjective, you could draw one hair coming out of Spider-Man's head. The blue can be the adjective. The green S is going to ask you, what kind of subject do I have? And we're going to connect that to make sure that we don't have a fragment. We must have a subject and a predicate P, which is the action A, the verb E, and the ending E. Then you can ask yourself, is the predicate present tense, meaning happening right now, pointing a down arrow? Is it past tense? We could point backwards with our hand. Is it future tense? Is it something that's going to happen later? So the predicate, is it past, present, or future? Is it simple or compound? We said Bill likes pickles. Well, if Bill likes more than one thing or doing one more thing, Bill loves to play golf, period. Bill loves to go fishing. Well, if Bill loves to play golf and go fishing, instead of having repetition, let's play come together right now and join those two sentences so that we don't have repeating and we can have a compound predicate. Now, here's how the question works. It'll say, what change should be made in sentence blank? And so if they say to you, what change should be made in sentence 12? Uh-oh, gotta get you guys a marker or a pen that's going to work better than that one. I checked everything except for my strategy material. So if you're looking at sentence 12, you're trying to decide if I need to make a change, and your students can tell that it's subject verb agreement, they'll just place a U for usage. And they've got to check all of these things. And that's why I wait so long to talk about usage, because there's so many things connected with this web with correct subject verb agreement. So if I look at sentence 12, keep in mind that I've always told you, think of this, the question as the red light. What are they asking me? Well, they're asking me only about sentence 12. So that means that sentence 12 has a problem of usage, subject verb agreement, singular versus plural, past, present, or future. Well, if I can't see the problem in sentence 12 before you pick no mistake or make no change, sometimes you might need to check the previous sentence, sentence 11, to see if there's a problem with the subject or the predicate or one of the adjectives or adverbs that go around it. So we can play the Michael Jackson moonwalk and back it up, caution yellow. Beep, beep, beep. Let's check the previous sentence and see if there's a problem that's going to help us understand what changed. For example, if sentence 12 uses a pronoun and we don't know who or what the pronoun is talking about, you would have to play the Michael Jackson moonwalk and say, oh, let's go look at the person, place, thing, or idea to see if it's singular or if it's plural. Or let's look at the predicate to see if it's past, present, or future. So the cool thing about the three arrows is not only does it mean that the sentence that they're asking you to look at has a problem and that you need to possibly check the previous sentence and make a box in front of it in the passage and the following sentence and make a box at the end of it. That means you've got to just check 3 sentences. And hopefully by that time, when you're going to this direction, putting the green arrow, oh, you're talking in future tense. So you check the following sentence. And the cool thing, it means problem, previous, following, and present, past, future. So if Michael Jackson's moonwalk is backing up, then checking the following sentence could be the other MJ, Michael J. Fox's Back to the Future. Let's check the following sentence. And so somewhere in one of these 3 sentences, you're going to see a change that needs to be made in subject verb agreement. So I will stop in part 2 of Spider-Man. We're going to play around the words in 80 ways. I'm going to change the content around by placing, if you can look here, what happens if I tell you how or why, where, when, or if I give you some other or opposite. So I want you to listen the first time through, and it's going to help your students remember that if you start with an introductory phrase, and I'll go into more detail on this on lesson 15 for those of you who are CREST online training members. For those of you who are just watching this video for free, you won't get to see that part, but at least you got to see how to do Spider-Man webbing instead of boring diagramming. So let me give you a sneak preview for those of you who are going to watch the next video. The phrase goes like this: to start with how, why, where, O, see the O there, other or opposite, when, you often put a comma, then. So what we're saying is either the introductory phrase telling us the how or the why or the when or the where, or the opposite or an other statement. It might not be a dependent clause that has a subject and a predicate, but it might be something that at least introduces the independent clause that's to follow. And the reason I used these yellow arrows, that if we're going to start with those things, that the phrase says to start with how, why, where, oh, when. You often put a comma, then. A little faster. To. I'm going to draw a 2 on my shirt. Start. I'm going to start running with, I got my web. How, why, where, oh, when. You often put a comma, then. That would be your independent clause, followed by what you see here at the bottom, the period, exclamation, or question mark. Okay, so I'm going to come outside the video and show you one more time how the saying goes, and you'll learn this in lesson 15 for usage, because I've been trying to keep the videos down for you guys. To. Okay. Start with, how, why, where, oh, other, opposite, when. You often put a comma, then, period, exclamation, or question mark. So what it's saying is that's called a complex sentence, and that's why usage is so difficult, because you have to learn coordinating conjunctions, join two independent clauses joined by a comma and a fanboy. You've got to learn dependent clauses where there's the beginning that has a subject and a predicate, but it's dependent or sometimes subordinate to the independent clause that also has a subject and a predicate, but they will be separated by a comma last time, so that you can practice saying it, maybe write it down somewhere. Because in some short phrases, if I say last night, that's an introductory phrase, but it's so short, it's called an optional comma. I don't need to put a comma there if I don't want to. You're not required to, because it just has 2 words. Last night I went to buy a pizza, period. You don't have to put that comma. But if the phrase, last night right after work, last night right after work, that's 2 when statements together that are a pretty long when, then you would want to separate that with a comma, just to prevent confusion from your reader of knowing, oh, this is when they were doing something, and separated with a comma, and this is who was doing something and what they were doing. So last time, to start with, how, why, where, oh, when. You often put a comma, then. The independent clause, there's the dependent clause or the introductory phrase. Then you have your comma to slow the sentence down. Then your independent clauses over here, followed by that red period, exclamation, or question mark. So that's the Spider-Man 1 that we just finished, and an introduction to Spider-Man 2 where we'll play in our next CREST online webbing training. Around the words in 80 ways. How to say the same thing with your pencil or your keyboard without repeating, but just changing the order of the words. That's sometimes in revision called what is the best revision that could be made in sentence blank? So revision is the organization of the words in a sentence, the cars on a street. So all you're changing is the order of the words without changing the content or the meaning to keep it intact. So it's foundational to learning subject verb agreement, because I've got, if it was in past tense, then I've got to keep it in past tense. If my subject was singular, then if I change the order of the words around, when they say what change, it still has to stay singular. The words will just be in a different order. And I call that one Spider-Man 2. So do me a favor and share or tag one of your reading/writing teacher friends. A reminder, all of you from 3rd through 10th grade are going to get 2 editing, which we're wrapping up, and 2 revising passages, which is going to be part 2. Editing is fixing the conventions, improving the conventions, the grammar. Revising is improving the content by adding, removing, replacing, or moving content around. So I hope you liked it. Your challenge, for those of you who are members of the CREST online training, I want you to draw your Spider-Man web with those 6 colors like I did. You can rewind the video and freeze frame it at that spot if you'd like. For those of you who are not members, you're welcome to do the same. Have a fancy little anchor chart that teaches kids how to diagram sentences and also learn correct subject verb agreement called usage at the same time, with hopefully one of our favorite superheroes, Spider-Man. Good night, good afternoon, good morning, good day. God bless each and every one of you. Please share or tag one of your reading teacher friends. Just real quick, all of you who teach high school, remember, you are going to get one more end of course test in December for all your students who did not pass, and there will be 2 editing and 2 revising passages there as well. Remember that in editing for 9th grade and 10th grade, there's going to be 9 editing questions regarding cups with 2 S's, and 9 revising questions, our next part, involving arm by adding, removing, replacing, or moving a word, a phrase, a transition, a sentence, combining sentences, inserting a sentence in the right place in a paragraph, adding a specific supporting sentence somewhere in a paragraph, finding the central idea or the controlling idea of a selection, removing a sentence that doesn't belong. All of that has to do with organization and development. So take care, and hopefully we'll see lots of amazing Spider-Man webs in our messenger, in my messenger, so that I can share some of them with those of you. Anyone who takes the time to send me one, just by doing it, you're going to earn 5 points for our ongoing contest, participation contest. And again, you have all summer. I'm not going to put timelines because people are watching these videos at all different times of the summer. So I won't be declaring any winners because there's just so many people that are doing it now and starting at so many different times. I won't declare any winners of any prizes until the very end, several weeks from now. Take care. God bless.